When we imported this table from the Word document, table number 13, 8 different things were done for us by the software. And I'd like us to look at those eight tasks. Number 1, adds a feature to target add position called position in phrase. And we can see that by going to our lexicon, add positions, looking at the feature. So a feature was added called position in phrase. And that feature has 2 values, phrase initial, phrase final. And that's based on our responses here. So if we said add position is at the beginning of the NP, and we put an X here, that will be tagged as phrase initial. For the prepositions that have an X in this column, they will be tagged as phrase final. And for the prepositions that we had before importing that table, we need to specify their value. So I'm going to do that now. I'll make this a time lapse. Okay, so that's the first task. The second task links the specific relationship markers in the ontology to their target equivalents. You remember those specific noun-noun relationship markers we talked about in the previous video? Okay, now these are linked to target equivalents. Now here, okay, body part is linked to a blank space. Word number 1 is a blank space. Composed of is linked to the word of. Group is linked to the word of. Some of these are linked to a blank space. Okay, name is linked to word number 19, which when we look over here is named. So these concepts, these noun-noun markers, were linked to their target language equivalents. That's the second task. Adds the appropriate values to the noun phrase feature called thing-thing relationship. We can come over here and we look in our feature set and we go to noun phrases. Okay, this is a feature that we've defined. When we define it, there are only 2 values, unspecified and not applicable. These values come from your document. Those values come from the columns over here, Saxon genitive, post-nominal genitive, pre-nominal genitive. So those are those values. So the values from your table get copied and added to here. And secondly, well, not secondly, but the second thing in that dialog adds a feature to noun phrases called NP location and phrase. So also here we can see there's a new feature called NP location and phrase. NP is pre-head, NP is post-head. So these values come from these check marks. Embedded NP precedes head or embedded NP follows head. So now there's a new feature with 2 values. Those 2 values there. The next task that was accomplished was number 5. Copies a rule from the grammar library, and that rule specifies the location of the modifying noun phrases. We can see that by going up here, complex concept insertion rules and library rules. Common transfer rules copied from the library. Specify position of embedded noun phrases. Okay, for each of those specific noun-noun relationship markers, like body part, composed of, generic, okay, this includes generic genitive, group, kinship, etc. For each of those, the output now specifies whether this modifying noun phrase should be before the head noun or after the head noun. So for example, body part, okay, from our document, body part embedded noun phrase precedes head noun. So here we see NP is pre-head. If we go to composed of, okay, in our document, composed of, this modifying noun phrase comes after the head. So we checked this column here, embedded NP follows head noun. And here composed of, in the output structure, NP is post-head. So all of these relationships, okay, generic genitive is unchanged here. So group is pre-head. Kinship is pre-head. All of these are marked for us automatically. Named is post-head. Okay? The next task that was done, 6, updates the noun phrase phrase structure rule. We can see that by coming here. So 2 things were done to this rule. the adpositions were inserted. Some adpositions are phrase initial, other adpositions are phrase final. So these two entries were added. These come in the post-head modifiers, and this one comes in the conjoiners. Now these are added at the beginning of the groups. It's up to you later. If you find out that you need these in another position, go ahead and drag them wherever you need them. But here they're put here now just to get us started. So that's the first way that this phrase structure rule was updated. This rule was also modified. You see here, NP prehead. This was added. So if we double click here, NP is prehead. This is our new feature. NP is prehead, and then down here, NP is posthead. So this phrase structure rule for noun phrases was modified in two ways: the adpositions and the modifying noun phrases. The next task, number 7, specifies the specific noun-noun relationships. If we come here to noun-noun relationships. Okay, in this dialog, we have generic genitival noun-noun relationships, which we'll talk about in the next video, and then the specific ones, body part, compositive, group, kinship. Remember, we talked about those in the previous video. So all of these now have their relationships specified, and this comes from the document. So body part we said is Saxon genitive, and it's marked as Saxon genitive. Composed of is marked as post-nominal genitive. Composed of is post-nominal genitive. So all of these are set for us. Now when we come here, let's look at, for example, Mary. Okay, so here is the possessor, Mary, and so far in the books of the Bible that we've analyzed, Mary has been in a generic genitival relationship with these nouns. So somewhere in the books that we've analyzed so far, we talk about Mary's enemy, Mary's name, Mary's servant, Mary's voice, Mary's language, Mary's friend, Mary's God. Now these are generic genitival noun-noun relationships. So the software can't set these for us, but now we can. So we would say, okay, Mary's enemy. We would say Saxon genitive. Mary's name. That's another Saxon genitive. Mary's servant. Mary's voice, Mary's language, Mary's friend, Mary's house, Mary's relative. We can say copy first relationship to all. So now they're all set to Saxon genitive. Okay? So that's the last task that was done for us automatically when we imported table number 13 from that Word document. So I'll close this, and we'll conclude this video here. In the next video, we'll start working on some of these sentences.